Alright, what is going on, everyone? I am Braxton, and this is BWC Racing. This is RC's out in Goldendale, Washington, where we had our last seasonal comp. We have one more coming up in February, on February 9th and 10th, I believe. We are down in Farmington, New Mexico for Grand Nationals, where we will be taking home the Western Series title, as we won 3 of the 4 Western events, which puts us well above second place for the series title. And then we will be competing for the national title and trying to beat one of the best, if not the best, rock crawler ever, Jesse Haynes. He got bored in the top unlimited class with the most capable cars, so he jumped down to our class in Pro Mod. But this is, of course, just RC footage between me and my cousin Colton, him running his 10-1, and I switched between 2 different cars, my straight axle Capra and my G-Speed, because my G-Speed link fell off somehow. I'm not really too sure how that happened, but you know what happens, so we're just gonna move past it. Getting through gate 2 here, pretty simple. I will say this though, this is probably one of the easiest RC courses I've ever set, just because of how bad the rocks were. The rocks were terrible up in Goldendale, and most of the rules you can live by with actual cars and the cars that we do RCing with. If the RCs don't stick to the rock and don't go good, the actual cars won't either. I've come to learn that if the actual cars don't stick to the rock, your RC cars aren't going to stick to the rock. Or vice versa. RCs don't stick, car won't stick. But anyways, getting through gate 3 there, touching the cone. Already taken, 3 reverses, I believe? Getting to gate 4, which was more difficult than I was expecting, to be perfectly honest, because I've done gates like this all the time. Or maybe it's because the car's not perfectly balanced. I mean, it is a perfect 60-40, which I need to get my G-Speed to a perfect 60-40, as it is 58-42, which is still pretty good, generally speaking, because it's so long that it's balanced, beautifully, and it just sits amazing, you know? But it's also so wide that, I don't have this side hailing problem like he does, because he's as long as I am, I believe, because I think he's running the long links. But he's so skinny that he can't do sidewall stuff. He can't side hill very good. I will say this, though. It does do much, much better than I'd expect it to do, being a 10-1. For all of you RC people, you know what an Axial SEX 10-1 was. For all of you who don't do RC, the Axial SEX 10-1 was the first chassis rail car the Axial brand made, and if I remember correctly, it is the first chassis rail car ever. Don't quote me on that, because I'm not 100% sure. I'm not new to the RC scene, but I'm also not like a veteran where I was around when the 10-1 first came out. Because I wasn't, or I was and I wasn't in the RC community yet, like I am now. Because now, I came in when the Wraith 1.9 very first came out. That was when I joined the RC scene. That was my first true RC car. Because we all had those little Walmart RC cars back in the day that had, the really big tires and just, weren't right. I had some of those back in the day, but I guess technically the SEX 10-1 wasn't the first chassis rail car that they had, because they had the AX10, which was the Axial Scorpion, which was a chassis rail car, but it's not a chassis rail car by the way chassis rail cars are now. The way chassis rail cars are now are like this, where it's a much more, given a little scene for how steep this is. It is a decently steep, but it's not that bad, honestly. It would have been easier without the dust. But what I mean by chassis rail car is scale. It looks the way that a Jeep chassis rail looks, or a Toyota chassis rail looks. How real chassis rails look. Colton blowing and dusting the rock off to see if he can get any more traction. He's not gonna get any more traction. So, it was the first type of chassis rail car that you really had the huge amounts of support and stuff like that. The SEX series, from Axial is probably one of the highest or biggest aftermarket support for any sort of RC car ever. The Capra has caught up pretty good. I still don't think it's quite where the SEX series is, because the SEX series has done amazing things, and Axial is really the rock crawling RC king. I personally, no one can beat Axial when it comes to RC crawling. There have been a few other brands like Traxxas and Losi who have tried to do RC crawling. The Traxxas is pretty good. It is the TRX4. It's a good car and it works really well, but I still don't think that it matches up to the SEX series or even the Capra or the Wraiths. I don't think it's quite to the legacy and how big the brand is. So I think, and Losi just failed miserably. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I have a Losi Nightcrawler, an old one, an OG one, but it is not good at all. Like, it is, I've had to custom put a different transmission in there. It works if you know how to make it work. There's been some lines where I've been like, it's not going to be able to do this, and then it pulls it off, you know? But very rarely does it do that, because most of the time it just flips over backwards. But anyways, I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.